Heard our last reading, The Death of Arthur. In England, Arthur and his men met Mordred, a son of Arthur, who wished to kill his father. His reasons for the hatred of Arthur is yet another story. Arthur and his men met Mordred and his men in one battle after another. The fortunes of war went forth. Then Arthur sent word to his son that they should speak together of a truce. Mordred uh, agreed to a meeting on the condition that no knight should raise a sword during the talk. So Arthur came to Mordred down a long line of knights, and he was beginning to speak quietly to Mordred when lo, a small snake came and bit one knight on the ankle. The knight raised his sword to smite the snake, and in an instant all of Mordred's men were raising their swords and rushing upon Arthur's knights. The battle was again on, and rage and fury all that day. And as night fell, Arthur saw hundreds of his knights lying dead around him. He stood in the dark, feeling old and weary. It seemed to him that nothing he had tried or dreamed of had come to anything. All he achieved was more death. Now, for the first time, Arthur went a little crazy. He took his sword and sought out his own son, Mordred. They raised their swords. Um, they raised their swords against each other, and Arthur killed Mordred. But before he fell, Mordred had given Arthur a fatal blow. Arthur staggered back to his pavilion and lay on his bed. One of his knights, Sir Bedivere, came to him and knelt by him weeping. "Sire, what can I do for you?" he asked. "Stop weeping," said Arthur. "There is my sword Excalibur. Take it to the lake and throw it in. And then come back to me and tell me when you have done so." Sir Bedivere took the sword and went with it to the lake. When he came to the shore, it seemed a pity to throw away such a beautiful weapon. He hid it under a bush and came back to Arthur in his tent. "You did as I asked you," said Arthur. "And what did you see at the lake?" "At the lake? Why, nothing, sir. Only the waves lapping." Arthur roused himself a little. Bedivere, please, let us have no more of this untruth and betrayal. Take my sword as I told you, or I shall never die in peace." Then Sir Bedivere went back to where he had left the sword. Nami lifted it high and threw it out into the lake. Then he saw an arm draped in silk rise out of the lake and grasp the sword and shake it 3 times before it disappeared into the water. After this, Bedivere returned to the king and told him about the mysterious arm. "Ah," said Arthur, "I thank you. Now it is done, and I may go." He closed his eyes, and soon thereafter he died. Epilogue. There are various stories about what happened next. Some chronicles say that Arthur did not really die, but that three queens came and carried him to a barge, then rowed him to a magic island called Avalon, where no one ever died. There, these chroniclers say Arthur lives to this day. There are others who tell of the grove where he was buried, but they also tell the words written on the tombstone. Um, The Latin translated means "Here lies King Arthur, once and future king," meaning again that someday the king who had done so much for England would return. And what of Guinevere and Lancelot? By the time Lancelot and his men arrived in England, Arthur was dead, Mordred was dead, and Guinevere had fled from the tower to a convent. After praying, Lancelot made his way to the convent where Guinevere saw him at the end of a long gallery and swooned. And even after she was revived, she would not go to see him. So Lancelot went on his way again. Later he heard that Guinevere had died in the convent. Lancelot himself went to a monastery and became a man of God before he too died. So the great years of King Arthur's reign came to an end, and with the end of the reign came the end of those he had loved and who had loved him. But still some glory remained in the land. There was a memory of the time when knights rode forth to right wrongs and help the helpless, to live pure and speak true. The shadows of mortal sin had fallen across the glory and put the sunlight out. But the sun always rises again, and with it a new hope for overcoming yesterday's mistakes and perhaps the promised Arthur, the once and future king.